The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 170.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library,
the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book
that will enable you to grow personally and professionally.
Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Stephanie O'Day, author of Real Moms Making Real Money, blogging at home in their pajamas. Welcome, Stephanie, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thank you.
Before we take a deep dive into your book, will you take just a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Sure. My name is Stephanie O'Day, and I am a mom of 3 girls. So pray for my husband. We have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I am lucky enough that I work full-time at home while I'm able to take care of my children. I'm a New York Times best-selling cookbook author, a slow cooking expert, and I'm just your typical, normal, everyday mommy blogger next door.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I have 2 boys, so I have no idea what one girl is like, let alone 3. So your husband must be amazing.
You probably step on Legos in the middle of the night,
yes.
And we step on Barbie shoes.
I gotcha. It's the same thing. Awesome. Well, so now let's jump right into your book, Real Moms Making Real Money, blogging at home in their pajamas, which is one of the coolest titles ever as far as provocative and bringing you in, which was actually made available not that long ago, January of 2015, so just last month. And Stephanie, we're going to move quickly, but we're going to cover the top questions that our listener/future reader would like to get answered.
That's okay. I am highly caffeinated and ready to go, Wade.
All right, perfect. So what was the inspiration behind writing this book?
You know, I personally needed to make money from home. And so I wanted to dive into finding a legitimate way to make money from home. And it's taken about 6 to 7 years to get to the place where I really feel comfortable knowing what I know and that I'm ready to share. And so this book is written for other moms who might be in the same situation where they either desperately need to quit their job to take care of their children. In my case, my 2-year-old at the time was getting awfully sick. And so I needed to pull her from daycare and take care of her at home. She's fine now. She ended up having celiac, which is a gluten sensitivity. But this was back in 2006. And going gluten-free was nowhere near as prevalent as it is now. So anyway, she's fine. But I had this fire in my belly that I had to find a way to make money from home. And I tried everything I could think of, and they all sort of ended up being scams. There's a lot of work from home and things that they advertise in the back of parenting magazines or on mothering message boards. And, you know, I feel like everyone deserves to make a living, but the way these people were doing it were in the most scammy way possible. And I don't think that's fair that other moms need to feel that sort of pressure and those sleazy sales tactics.
Excellent. So I don't think there's a ton of competition in this space, especially as far as you've niched down, but what does make your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
You know, that's a good point. My very first blogging conference I went to, I said, my name is Stephanie, and I write every day about using my crock pot, and I've done it all with no money down, and I still have Blogspot in my URL. And this man in a suit pretty much laughed at me. And if there was some way to do a little virtual head pat, like, oh, you cute little thing, you'll never amount to anything because you still have Blogspot in the URL. And you know, that URL, that Blogspot URL gets 20,000 people or so a day and launched cookbooks, has gotten me on national television and endorsement deals. And I did it completely with no money down. I didn't even want to spend the $9.99 to register a domain name because at the time I was absolutely determined that I could make something from virtually nothing. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm hoping to share with other women or people who just want to find a way to make a legitimate income from their kitchen table.
And how did you, speaking of that specific niche, how would you suggest they engage with your book? Is this one that they should jump in and jump out, cherry picking information as needed, or did you really design it or write it to be read from front to back?
Most of my reviewers on Amazon and my friends who beta tested it said that they sat with a cup of coffee and they read it all in one sitting. It's a quick read. The way I write is the way I speak, in sort of a conversational style of, this is how I did it, this is what worked for me, this isn't what worked for me, spend money on this, don't spend money on that. And so I think reading it through once to get a feel for it, and then going back and dog-earing the pages that you want to dive a little bit more into. One thing that I truly believe in is give, and then trust in the power of karma, and it will come back to you. So when I first started, had a very difficult time getting on PR mailing lists and different opportunities for bloggers. And so I've decided to list all of the brands and contacts that I have with PR agencies and suggest to my readers, Google these names and get on their mailing lists. And what took me a few years to create a database, I've listed all out in this book. And from the emails that I've gotten, that is one of the most helpful things.
Perfect. So now that we know a little of the background, a little of the purpose behind the book, let's take a deep dive into the content itself. So will you take the next couple minutes, 5 to 8 minutes, and really break down what the future reader can expect to get out of your book?
Sure, absolutely. This is certainly geared to the beginner blogger or the on-the-fence blogger who is not sure how to do it and may be a little intimidated with some of the advice out there and the jargon, the HTML and the SEO and the monetization and all of these terms that, if you are brand new, can be overwhelming. And so I've spelled it out in a way that search engine optimization is just giving the readers what they're already searching for, what they're already Googling for. And the way that I got started was I knew that a recipe site already had a very tight, focused SEO, but I didn't cook. And so after a couple of glasses of wine one night with my husband, I just kind of joked and I said, I don't really cook. I just use my crock pot. I should write a crock pot blog. And that was kind of the light bulb moment that's what I personally search for, and that's what I would want to read. Why wouldn't that work? And it did. And from the other bloggers that I've mentored in the past, it's the same thing. My friend Jen likes to discover new cocktails, so she started a cocktail blog. Some of my friends are very involved in the gluten-free community, so they've taken on a gluten-free desserts blog and different things, stuff that you're already searching for. Fill that niche with your voice, and that's how you become an expert. You become an expert just by walking the walk and giving your readers what they want, day in and day out. And so I've since been on Good Morning America, and George Stephanopoulos referred to me as a slow cooking expert. So voila, now I get to call myself a slow cooking expert, because if George Stephanopoulos calls you one, it must be true. And then another thing what I like about the way that I formatted my book versus other books is I'm okay with sharing kind of insider secrets. My friend Sean calls it opening the kimono, which is a little risque. But I think holding your cards too closely isn't helpful. And especially if you're a new mom and you just want to stay home with your colicky baby and you're feeling pressure to make an income, having to jump through hoops or read in between the lines or figure out the innuendos isn't helpful. And so I've fully laid out the steps that I have taken and what has worked and what has not, and how to use commenting on other sites as both an SEO and a networking strategy, how to use Twitter and Facebook correctly. So you're not just constantly saying, read this, I wrote this, you should read this, because that doesn't work. Nobody wants to hear you standing with a megaphone. I've also talked about how I consider myself a mommy blogger, but I don't talk about my kids. I have 3 girls. Their pictures have never been online. I don't even have a personal Facebook page. I believe in keeping family life and business completely and totally separate. And that's one thing that I have always felt very strongly about, and my husband has always felt very strongly about, is until the children are 18, their pictures aren't going to be on the internet. And that's the way it works. This book, I've also talked about how to sell your own ads in the sidebar, how to create your own product to sell. I've dabbled a little bit into the publishing world, but I need to point out that this book happens to be the first in a series called The Mommy Blogger Next Door. And probably in subsequent books, I'll dive a bit deeper into the publishing world, because I've now had quite a bit of experience with big New York publishers along with self-publishing. And both have pros and cons. One of the biggest pros, of course, is that I was able to hit the New York Times bestsellers list for my first cookbook, and it stayed on for 6 weeks. And that's not something that is easy to do if you're self-published. That's much easier if you have a big New York powerhouse behind you. One other big piece of advice that I would give your listeners, and what I advise when I mentor new bloggers, is to go with the gut test. I think women in general are blessed with this intuition, and if it feels wrong, it's wrong. If someone is trying to over-promise you this perfect work-life balance, you're going to have a perfect house, your kids are going to be well-behaved, you can do this and that and still have cute hair and white teeth and exercise daily, and if it feels like they're over-promising, then they're probably just trying to get all your money, and you should stay far away, because life in general is filled with ebbing and flowing, and some days you will have lots of energy and you'll get a lot of work done, and other days you'll be up nights with a teething baby, and you won't have any energy, and you'll just want to sit on the couch and watch Big Love on repeat, and that's okay too. Because tomorrow is a new day, and try not to beat yourself up.
Excellent. Well, Stephanie, thank you for taking us through the book. And now I'm going to be kind of mean and ask you to take it down even a step further.
Okay.
Or at least to highlight one specific part. And that's if the reader could only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of everything you just discussed with us and your entire book, what would you want that to be?
I don't think that's mean, Wade. I think that's a very good question. And my whole purpose for writing this was to show that you can make something from absolutely nothing. I did not put a dime into anything the first year of my site. And by the end, I had over 60,000 subscribers. I had over 15,000 daily visitors. And I was able to land a book deal. So, and all of that was from nothing down, absolutely nothing. I didn't upgrade my camera. I didn't buy a domain name. I didn't pay for web hosting, completely free.
Wow, that's powerful. And that's what we're looking for next too, is something, a quote, a favorite quote of yours from your book, something powerful, but also if you can take a minute to explain what it means to you.
Sure. I thought about this because you had given me this question up front, and I appreciate the heads up on it. And I think what my readers constantly are telling me is that I'm nice, and I feel like their friend, and I feel like their neighbor. And the quote that I've circled is to handle every single interaction online as a customer service representative would. You are your best advocate, and you will always be your best personal relations manager, which simply means if someone emails you, email them back. If someone tweets at you, tweet them back. If they take the time to comment on your Facebook page, respond to them. If you find that your day is too busy and you can't give your readers that personal attention, then that's the time when you need to hire a virtual assistant or do something. But readers, and especially in this day and age with social media, they expect the personal touch.
So, Stephanie, it wouldn't be a book-centric podcast if I didn't ask you for a book recommendation. And so that's what I'm going to ask you now is if there's only one book you could recommend to our listeners, based on the way it's impacted your life and maybe created a paradigm or a lifestyle shift, what book would you suggest?
My absolute favorite is probably the very first personal development book that I read. And I remember having a baby strapped to my chest and trying to make meatloaf, and she was colicky, and I was listening to it in the background on audio, and I checked it out from the library, and I probably renewed it 6 or 7 times, and I just sort of kept it on loop in the background, and it's Brian Tracy's 21 Success Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires, and he walks you through each of the 21 steps, and it's a good, solid book that sort of pinpoints all of the different things that in order to live a long, healthy, fulfilling, and prosperous life that you would need.
Excellent. And, that's the first time we've actually had that one recommended, even though Brian Tracy is extremely popular. I think that's the first time we've had that book. That specific.
I think you would like it. I was looking around online. I don't know if it's still in print. There's old copies you can get, and then the audio to download. I like the audio. I think Brian Tracy has a nice, soothing voice.
Nice. Oh, and he reads it himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He does everything himself.
Nice. No, that's fantastic.
And he has perfect hair and a perfect tie.
That's awesome. Excellent. Well, Stephanie, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to not only get more information on you, but also get some information on this book?
Sure. My main website is Stephanie O'Day, all one word, StephanieOdea.com. And this book is the first in the Mommy Blogger Next Door series, and its title is Real Moms Making Real Money, Blogging at Home in Their Pajamas.
Well, again, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your book, Your Baby, with us.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today on the EL. If you'd like more information on Stephanie or her book, visit the show notes at theelpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea?
Head over to theelpodcast.com.
Where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs with you for free.
That's theelpodcast.com.
Till the next time, keep it on the EL.